Hey everyone, welcome back to Faith Focus. My name is Daniela Bizant, and today's episode is one I've been wrestling with personally, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of you, especially if you're someone who tends to live in your head a little more than your heart. We're talking about the difference between intellectual faith, you know, the kind you love theology, structure, apologetics, the rich academic history of the church, and relational faith, the kind that involves actual intimacy with Jesus Christ, not as a concept, but as a person. As Catholics, we're so blessed. We have this beautiful 2,000-year-old tradition, sacramental richness, mystics and martyrs, and the writings of the saints and the doctors of the church. You could study it for a lifetime and still only scratch the surface. And for some of us, myself included, the temptation is to stay in that world because it's safe, it's fascinating, it gives you the satisfaction of mastery, of knowing. And when prayer feels dry or when God feels distant, it's easy to compensate by just reading another book or watching another Bishop Barron video or deep diving into canon law or the catechism or obscure saint biographies. And not that any of that is bad, of course not. But if you're not careful, you can start to mistake information for intimacy. My spiritual director said something that I've been chewing on. She was quoting someone else when she said, "When you read the doctors of the church, do it on your knees." That image really got me because there's a danger in intellectualizing the faith to the point that it actually pulls you away from God. You can become so engaged with the ideas of God that you stop being in relationship with Him. This is very much my personal tendency. I can spend hours thinking about church history, patterns of liturgical development, or comparing spiritual writers across centuries, and I'll tell myself, well, I didn't pray deeply today, but I read 40 pages of something brilliant about the faith. That surely counts. And maybe it does in part, but I also know I'm capable of using study as a form of avoidance. Avoidance of silence, avoidance of vulnerability, avoidance of having to sit in the stillness with Jesus and let Him actually look at me. Because let's be honest, it's far easier to read about God than it is to let God read you. So I told my spiritual director that sometimes I rush through the Psalms of the Divine Office. Unless I'm in some kind of personal anguish, they can feel a little tedious. And she said, keep going. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like, force yourself to stay with it because it's a discipline for the brain. And the fact that you struggle with it is actually the reason to keep doing it. And that reminded me of something I used to hear in New Age yoga circles, that the poses you hate are probably the ones your body needs the most. So maybe the Psalms are that for me, stretching parts of my spiritual body I'd rather ignore. And maybe there's a medicine in the repetition. Maybe there's grace in the obedience. And maybe, just maybe, God is trying to speak to me precisely through that resistance. And this brings me back to the opening line of John's Gospel, a verse that I find mysterious and stirring. It might be my favorite verse in the entire Bible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's so beautifully complex. Jesus is both with God and God. The logos, the logic, the structure, the reason became flesh and dwelt among us. But here's the hard part. It's possible to know that verse, to study it, analyze the Greek version of it, memorize all the commentaries on it, and still not know the person behind it. Thinking about God uses the mind, but loving God, like really loving Him, requires the will, the heart, and the courage to be changed. One is theological intimacy, and the other is relational intimacy. And I think you can have one without the other, and Jesus probably wants both. He wants our mind, yeah, but He also wants our tears, our fears, our affections, our trust, and our gaze. A few invitations, if you're like me and tend to stay in your head, would be to examine your prayer life. Are you performing or connecting? Are you checking boxes or encountering a person? Try praying out loud to Jesus, not just the Trinity in general or the concept of God the Father, but Jesus. Call him by name. Tell him you don't know how to be close. Bring that to him too. And let yourself be bored in prayer. Stay with the Psalms, read them slowly, sit with the repetition. Even boredom can be an act of love if it's done faithfully. And end every study session with silence. Before you close your book, close your eyes and ask, Lord, what do you want me to know about you, not just about this? I don't think Jesus wants us to know about our intellect. He gave us his mind, so of course he wants us to use them. But I do think that he wants us to really kneel with them, to submit them, but to let love lead. And I think what he wants is that love based connection with him. And the knowledge is supposed to deepen that, not distract us from it. Because in the end, our faith isn't just a system, it's a relationship. And relationships need more than footnotes, they need presence. Maybe we should end with a closing prayer. Jesus, you are the Word made flesh. Draw me out of my mind and into your heart. Teach me how to know you, not just about you. Where I've used knowledge as armor, help me lay it down. Give me the courage to be with you in stillness, in silence, and in love. And to quote the Bible and my spiritual director, who I adore so much, I believe, help my unbelief. Amen.